Inside Politics on CNN with Dana Bash talks about inflation. Some numbers came out today showing that inflation is continuing to go up. And it's so weird how they cover this story and then they also have stories where they pretend like they don't know why people aren't responding the way they should about the economy. It's so weird. They'll do these segments where they have the poll numbers, they have the hard evidence to say, oh, this is why people aren't happy about this economy. And then other segments, they say, oh, hey, I want to give them credit. But that's what they do. And Dana Bash, we're going to use Dana Bash to give us the bottom line numbers, and then we'll get to some reaction like Jim Clyburn. All right, so let's talk now inflation, because inflation is rising as Biden says the economy is great. And now they're getting people telling them, hey, do a different strategy. This is not landing that you think the economy is going well, but they can't not talk about the stock market. They can't not talk about GDP. They can't, all these sort of owner class, capitalist class sort of things that means the economy is good for them, but it doesn't translate to workers. It's hard for them. But anyway, let's listen. Let's rewind 15 seconds. So they're going to end on the previous part and begin in like 14 seconds here.
So many congressional Republicans saying, oh, no, we're not going to be talking about IVF or birth control. We're seeing that happen, and it could absolutely happen in Arizona.
Okay, everybody stand by. Democrats are hoping that this issue of abortion rights are top of mind for voters in November. Polls also show inflation and the broader economy are even more important at this point. The president didn't get some great news on that front this morning. Inflation rose 3.5%, the highest since September. Americans are paying more for gas, for food, and housing. CNN's Rahel Solomon is
gas, food, and
with
housing.
Me now. Rahel,
that sounds like the major things. So if gas, food, and housing goes up, but everything else goes down, is the economy doing good? Everything for me to sustain life is higher. But some people on Wall Street got some money, and I'm supposed to be happy about the economy.
Show.
Yeah, well, I mean, Dana, you laid it out pretty well there, but it's really gas and housing that were the largest contributors here to the price hike that we saw. So this was higher than we were expecting. It was higher than the month prior. And as you pointed out, it's the sort of fastest pace we've seen since 6 months or so. So 3.5%. To put that in perspective, Dana, the expectation was 3.4%. Even on a monthly basis, prices came in hotter than expected. So CPI, or the Consumer Price Index report, this is just one inflation report that the Fed uses to help guide its decisions, but it's an important one. There are 3 inflation reports, but it is an important one. So what happens here really matters. I want to go through some components for you where we saw prices increase. As we said, gas was a pretty big contributor, 1.7%.
Look at these numbers here. Gas is up 1.7. Shelter, that's housing. And it's weird how she describes it. She's like, they say shelter, and then she has to describe it like, yeah, I guess that's like mortgage or rent. Like she said something to that effect. You'll hear. Up 0.4%. Food is up 0.1%. But then they want us to respond to a poll that the economy is doing well. The 3 biggest, I would say, the 3 biggest things, or 3 of the biggest things, I should say, that all of us have to pay, that takes a good chunk of our money, are these 3 things. Roof over your head and food is basic stuff to live as a person, as a human, I should say. But let's listen what they said.
That's a pretty big deal. Food prices only modestly, but still increasing a bit. And shelter prices. So shelter has been especially sticky. And we had been actually hoping, and when you think shelter, you think rent inflation, rent prices, you think sort of the price to put a roof over your head, if you want to put it that way. We had actually been hoping to get some progress on shelter inflation, but that has not happened. And so that's part of what we've seen. And if you're looking at the markets today.
And I can attest to that. And RBN could attest to that. We can bear witness to shelter going up. I just thought of that. We are having a fundraiser right now because JB and I need to move. JB's moving. His rent just went up. We did a fundraiser maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago, because his rent had went up. The same people now selling the place and he has to get out. So he's having to move. The reason he didn't leave before, because all the other places to move to was more than he was already paying, which had went up. So that's an uptick for him. Me having to move, I'm looking at places right now, we're paying $500 more minimum to move. Minimum. Per month extra. And I'm supposed to answer a survey that the economy's going well. Is that even serious?
You'll probably notice that it's a pretty rough day. And the reason why is not just because of what this report tells us about the path of inflation as it has been, but also the path of rate cuts in the future. And so the expectation had been, Dana, as you know, that we would start to see rate cuts from the Fed perhaps as early as June. The door has practically been shut on that after this report, because essentially what you have, this is now the third CPI report after January, after February. Now you have March coming in hotter, which suggests that inflation is sort of stuck, right? And so it's really remarkable because we've gone from rate cuts are absolutely coming in 2024. That was the consensus not a long time ago.
No, it's not
and then
coming.
It became last week, we heard one Fed official say, well, maybe we don't need rate cuts at all in 2024. And that set off some alarm bells. And now you're hearing after this report, one prominent economist pointed out, maybe the next move from the Fed is actually a rate hike.
Oh my
so
goodness.
It is really remarkable what has happened. But essentially, you have an economy that's still strong in terms of the labor market, in terms of consumer spending, but you have prices and inflation.
The labor market is adding jobs because people got to get second and third jobs to afford the shit you just said is going up. Do you know my grocery bill has doubled? Family of 4, 2 kids, 2 adults, used to be $300 a month. I mean, a week we were spending. It's $600 a week. Not quite, five something a week for the same food. For the same food. Crazy, but I'm supposed to answer a survey to give Joe Biden a pat on the back. Yeah, that's happening. Let's go to Twitter for the rest of this here. We're going to get Jim Clyburn's reaction to this. Because y'all need to stop gaslighting people. That's essentially has been the message. Stop acting like the inflation is like this economy is going well. Here's the inflation numbers, bub. So what do you say about this? Which one I'm going to start with? This is, oh, yeah. No, that's right. Okay, so I got to play this one first. Okay, so this is the one I got to play first. I was trying to remember the order. So before I play Jim Clyburn, because he's reacting to this, to this other focus group. So there's another focus group, or there's a focus group now on MSNBC. And this focus group is of undecided voters. And the question, or the part that I want to discuss, they talk about other stuff, is the part when they get to the economy. No, let me give you a preview. All right, so let me give you a preview.
We're also asked how they think.
Let me give you a snippet, and then we'll play the longer version. That's what I want to do. So let's play this.
In key swing states, it's a set of.
My bad, everybody. What I'm clicking in Twitter is bringing up something else because it has this funny function now where it thinks it's helping and it's not. All right, this is the one I want to play first. It's only 24 seconds. This is a preview of what you're going to hear.
The undecided voters were also asked how they think President Biden is doing on the economy. Take a listen.
I think he's been absolutely disastrous for the economy.
I agree.
Raise your hand if you think President Trump's policies on the economy would be better for your family personally. Raise your hand. All right, so that is everybody.
The undecided voters were also asked how they think President Biden is doing on the economy. Take a listen.
I gotta hear this again.
I think he's been absolutely disastrous for the economy.
He's been absolutely disastrous for economy. I think he's been absolutely disastrous. So that's from Morning Joe, and same Morning Joe show, they bring on Jim Clyburn,
Congressman,
to,
and that
react to this to them and what they're saying. So let's listen to Jim Clyburn speak.
Let's talk about some of the real warning signs that I heard for the Biden campaign, Congressman. And that was that these undecided voters polled, and then in this focus group, showing that they are really suffering when it comes to interest rates, trying to buy a home, looking at their own personal economies, and they're feeling like they're being gaslit. They're feeling Joe Biden isn't accountable. What's your response to that? And how can the campaign address these feelings?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me. I think that we have to focus on people's everyday lives. And 401ks are not about people's everyday lives. And I do believe, just from my own observations, from the conversations I've had with people, there are concerns about things like inflation. But what we've got to get them to see is that inflation today is about 40% of what it was when Joe Biden took office. And so the inflation rates are down and people's incomes are up. Unemployment is on the decrease. And although we see the prices at the stores costing more money, people are in fact earning greater incomes. So what we've got.
So what does that mean, Jim Clyburn? If prices have gone up if prices have gone up and incomes have gone up, what does that mean, Jim Clyburn? What's the use in me getting more money if the cost of housing and food costs more money? He's as dumb as he looks, and he looks quite dumb.
Office. And so the inflation rates are down and people's incomes are up. Unemployment is on the decrease. And although we see the prices at the stores costing more money, people are in fact earning greater incomes. So what we've got to do is make sure that people see the policies of the Biden administration, how they affect their everyday lives, and get them to see in his policies that which is real, not what they may hear on social media. One of the focus group people talked about social media and the misrepresentation, disinformation, all of those things are out there.
What I'm not being misrepresented by my rent being up high. I'm not mistaken on that, sir. I'm not mistaken on food prices being high. There's no misinformation about egg prices.
And that's the battle that we have to fight, and we've got to do a better job of fighting it more effectively.
So I'll validate that. I think the disinformation out there is distorting the entire process. I think social media doesn't help. But there's also a lack of validation that these voters feel. And I'm going to bring in Andrew Ross Sorkin right now because we just got breaking news. The consumer price index increased at a faster than expected pace last month.
That's
a signal that inflation remains stubbornly high. Let's bring in Andrew, co-anchor of CNBC Squawk Box.
We don't need to hear this moron right here. We can stop there. I have a different... They talk a little more. I want to get a little more of them talking about inflation.
Undecided voters in key swing states. It's a set of polls and focus groups conducted simultaneously, which I don't think has been done before, by WIC Insights and the interactive video platform Two Way. So we hear from voters in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. Undecided voters, okay? And they are states, of course, that Donald Trump narrowly swept in 2016 and then Joe Biden in 2020. So let's start. Here are their answers when they're asked about how President Biden is doing on the economy. Take a listen.
I think he's been absolutely disastrous for the economy.
The long version now.
I agree.
Raise your hand if you think President Trump's policies on the economy would be better for your family personally. Raise your hand. All right. So that is everybody. President Biden argues that his economic record has been very good. Said President Trump's was not as good. What are you keying off of, Sean? Since you had the best smile, and Virginia the second best smile, what are you keying off of to say President Trump's economic policies would be better for you?
My past performance of my 401k. I know it was post 2020 and everything.
That tells you these aren't real like non-union working class people. They don't have 401ks. That's not how they're judging. And these interest rates. They have a lot of these people. Interest rates, poor people are not talking about interest rates. They're not buying anything. So even on these panels, they don't really have the capacity to even get voters like a Rome, like a Nick. That's not the level they're willing to go down. They'll go down to like professional nurse. They'll go down like a flight attendant, like union people who are working class.
Kind of flipped around, but you can't blame everything on 2020 for forever.
We have areas here in Pennsylvania where it's just at a standstill right now. Like things are supposed to be being built and the interest rates are just way too high for people to invest and start moving around.
And Virginia, just staying with you because Pennsylvania is near and dear to Joe Biden's heart. Are there Biden policies that you would blame for the problem? And if so, what are they?
The interest rate is so high right now. And I know they're trying to.
Like, this is another one. Like, anyway, they don't need to
cut the inflation down. But like, if nobody is building, no businesses are really coming to Pennsylvania right now to keep us moving forward.
Even if you're trying to buy a house, because I'm trying to become a first-time home buyer, the prices are so high right now. It's just hard.
Have we ever thought, are the prices high or we just pay too little? Would the prices be too high if we all made $50 an hour starting? Would the prices be too high if we earned, if it was a worker co-op, or if the workers own the means of production? Anyway, I digress. Let's continue.
Is there anything Joe Biden could do or say between now and the time you vote that would make you feel differently about feeling that his policies would not be as good for your family on the economy? Or are you pretty much decided that Trump's policies would be better for the economy?
I mean, I feel like he doesn't even take accountability for what's going on in the economy. Not even accountability, like he's in denial that it's happening.
The point is Biden needs to hear the people, because when he's talking about the economy doing stellar, he's talking about the stock market. He's not looking at homelessness or joblessness. He's not, at Edie's point, thinking about how much it costs to go to the grocery store. And he's gaslighting literally everyone in the process.
And the Biden administration hear that and say, double down on Bidenomics. Because owners are seeing money, their bank accounts grow. So to them, it is hard. It's a different reality. To you, the economy is going good. So it's hard to trick your mind to be in a conversation, to speak in a way that the economy is doing bad, when to you, your pockets is fat. You get what I'm saying? It's something you can't trick the mind into doing. Once you get into the conversation, you're going to keep reverting back to what you really believe in your language.